Hello, everyone. My name is Jimmy Smith, and welcome to episode number 10 of the Rambler podcast, where we interview prominent alumni to highlight the success they have accomplished beyond their time at Prep or Villa, and we interview current faculty or staff members to let you get to know more about the people at Prep, helping serve our students in the school today. Now, today we are thrilled to have Judge John Trucilla as a guest on the podcast. John is a graduate of the Cathedral Prep class of 1978, and while at Prep, he was a captain of Prep's first hockey team, twice named MVP, and was Lakeshore League All-Star. In baseball, he was a captain of the team and a two-time unanimous All-Metro choice. He was also a two-year starter on the football team as well. John was honored his senior year when he received the Tyzinski Memorial Award as one of Prep's outstanding multi-sports athletes. Upon graduation from Prep, John went on to the University of Dayton, where he was a 4-year starter on the baseball team and a 2-year captain. In 1982, he received his BA in political science with a concentration in English and philosophy. John then went on to receive his Juris Doctor degree in 1985 from the University of Dayton School of Law. John began his legal career as a judicial law clerk to the Honorable Shad Connolly in 1986. He has worked as an assistant district attorney for Erie County, assistant United States attorney, serving as chief of Northwest PA from 1997 to 2000. He was a chief federal prosecutor until his run for a seat on the Erie County Court of Common Pleas. He was elected in November of 2001 and seated in January of 2002. John has served as administrative judge of the Family Division and was unanimously selected to lead the bench as president judge in 2015. He also works as an adjunct professor at Gannon University and Penn State Barron. Some of his recognition awards and accomplishments include Youth Leadership Institute 2011 Person of the Year, co-founder of Erie County's Parent Coordinator Committee 2012, honorary chairperson of Global Youth Service Day for Erie County, founder of Juveniles on the Run for Success, member of Flipside, initiative to deter youth gun violence, recipient Boys and Girls Club Community Service Award for Commitment to Youth, recipient of PA Bar Association Chief Justice Ronald D. Castile Judge's Award for Commitment to Legal Aid, presented Gannon University's Chess for the College of Humanities, Education, and Social Sciences Outstanding Adjunct Professor Award in 2020. And all to at least not neglect the fact that he is in the President's Hall of Fame at Cathedral Prep as well. John is proud to have served the community in a variety of volunteer endeavors, some of which include Special Olympics, the St. Martin Center, the Boys and Girls Club, and the Barber Center. John and his wife Suzanne have 6 children: John, Prep Class of 2010, Luke, Prep Class of 2011, Marielle, Villa Class of 2013, Grace, Villa Class of 2015, Anne, Villa Class of 2015, and James, Prep Class of 2015. And Judge Trucilla, all that to say welcome to the Rambler podcast.
Well, Jimmy, it's great to be with you, and I've known you for quite a long time. I've had the great privilege to know your parents, particularly your father. I'm not sure I deserve the title of prominent alumni, but I'm certainly proud to be an alumnus of Cathedral Prep, so thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons why I wanted to start with the podcast was to really create value for our alumni base, our students, and be able to have conversations like this with people like yourself who, beyond his years of prep, have gone on to accomplish some really great things. So we're very fortunate to have you. So I guess let's get started here. When you decided to go to prep, why was that decision for you to go there?
That's interesting. I've thought about that, and I was from 5th and Cranberry, so the Lower West Side. I went to St. Andrews. I was an altar boy for Monsignor Gannon and Father Swoger, who was the assistant headmaster at Cathedral Prep. Most of my buddies went to Vincent. Some of us went to Prep. I guess it might have been as they say, the religiosity. I did want to continue with that tradition. And it really is something, because both of my parents did go to Vincent, and I just always had an affinity to go to Prep. My dad would take me to the stadium to see the football games, the Audi to see the basketball games, and I fell in love with the Prep student body, and had my heroes in sports, and that's always where I wanted to go. And I enjoyed a great time at Prep, but I also, of course, had friends in the public school network at Vincent and all the other public schools.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely something, like you said, those connections, those relationships, as to, those years when you're deciding where to go to school make such a big impact. And neat to hear also that, you kind of started the generations of going to prep in your family or Villa.
I'm proud of that, and blessed also, I should note.
Yeah. Now, what do you say are some of your best memories for your time as a student at prep?
Well, again, you mentioned it at the beginning. First of all, everybody's proud of their class, but there's hands down no question that we were part of the greatest class ever. The Great 78, as I like to call it. If you looked around the community contributions from, and I could go down the list, and I don't want to take up your time on the podcast, but we had a class of overachievers, and I'm not just talking about heads of industry or, for example, Tim Nicastro, CEO of Erie Insurance, or whatever other leaders in the law or medicine. But I'm talking about guys that, for example, may have worked at Hammer Mill, and then when they got laid off or their job ended, they became nurses. And I'm thinking of a few guys I know. Or the other industries, blue-collar guys that put their time in. We had such an eclectic group. We had police officers, firefighters, people who serve our community from every aspect. And my fondest memories are being friends with all of the groups that get stereotyped, from jocks to the socialites to the nerds to the techies, as they say, or guys. There were no really true cliques at prep. We all were friends with each other, and it crossed barriers. And when I went to school, I loved every morning meeting in our auditorium and seeing guys and talking about what happened the night before or what we were doing on the weekend. And yeah, we had some very good memories. I don't know if you want me to get specific or not, but
whatever you want to share.
Well, there's a couple. Of course, I was part of the Six Demerit Club. That's when my junior year we were playing Tech. And the day before the game, or the day of the game, Friday, we had a spontaneous rally in the auditorium, and just everybody that was there. And you got to remember, back in 1976, 77, I graduated in 1978, but I was playing football, and we had Coach Dave Wenrick, and we had a very talented team, although our record didn't display it. But we got fired up because there was a sports writer, Jack Palance, that wrote some negative things about prep and that we were going to lose to Tech. So the whole school, basically, 600 kids, and a lot of kids were still coming in. We had a big school. A lot of kids ran out of the school and went up to the Times News. And then we went to St. Ben's, we went to the Times. And the difficult problem for me was I was on the team. So not only was I sent, when we got back, Father, now, well, he's passed away, but Monsignor Dollinger sent everybody to the auditorium. And then we were all assessed 6 demerits.
Yeah.
So we had to go on 2 weekends. And then, of course, I had to answer to Coach Wenrick. And, I was benched for the first half, but then played the second. But it was awesome when we got there, that when we came out of the locker room down to the stadium, every student lined from the locker room down to the field, and they were all chanting, 6D, 6D, the 6D club. It will go down in infamy. That was one. And then I always like to tell the story. Me and another student, Vic Benoit, we were hall monitors, and within a week of graduation, we were on I guess you would call it a parapet, one of the towers of the school.
Yeah.
It's above the journalism room on the 4th floor, if you didn't know.
Okay.
And you can only get up there through a ladder. And Jerry Tremblay, who's passed away, God rest his soul, he's a good guy. He taught Latin, and he ran the paper, basically. Mm-hmm. And so me and Vic were hall monitors, and this was Villa's sports day. So we went up there to get some sun, but we also, as the story goes, everything from here on out is hypothetical.
Yeah, right.
There were oranges up there, and hypothetically, these oranges were being thrown at Villa cars because they kept circling our block honking. And, we had some fun. So all of a sudden we heard the ladder pounding on the door, and it was our headmaster, Father Dollinger, assistant headmaster, Father Swoger, who I used to be an altar boy for, and Mr. Tremblay. And they asked us to come down. We were close to being expelled. I take a little deviation on the story now. They sent Vic back to class, and they brought me down to the office. And I guess I knew I'd be a lawyer at this point. I said, Father, how can this be? This isn't fair. This isn't justice at all.
Right.
Where's the due process here? You send him back. He was up there with me. And, you have me down in the office. And he leaned over and said, I've seen Benoit throw. There's no way he could reach the street. The truth be told, he had a very good arm. But yeah, and thankfully they said, please don't get in any more trouble. They were very great guys. I known Father Swoger and Father Dollinger. I used to host the rallies, and we had a great rapport. They just said, please don't do anything.
Right.
But that was one of my fond memories. They exercised good judgment, and I loved our faculty. I was great friends with a lot of our teachers after I graduated. But the network, one more thing, not to take this too far in narrative, but I still stay in touch with several members of my graduating class on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We go out to dinner, we see them at sports games, we meet, we talk. And right next door, Dave Ridge was a classmate of mine in St. Andrews. He's now on the bench, and I see him almost every day or every other day, talk about legal matters, personal things. He's a great friend. Of course, we have Judge Brabender on the bench, a prep grad. But that brotherhood really is the difference to me as to what distinguished prep from several of the other schools that I had many friends at. Yeah. They don't stay in touch. If they do, it's one or two guys. Even big schools like McDowell, great school, and we always tease about our rivalry, but it's a great school. And a lot of guys I knew my age, they stay in touch with one or two guys, and they always say, I can't get over how you prep guys still talk to each other and go out, play golf, have dinner, socialize, or if you have a question, job reference, you have that network. And I hope that stays intact.
Yeah. Well, I would say that's the same kind of experience that I've had, with prep is when somebody asks, well, what made prep so special for you? Why did you like it? You can never really put it on one thing other than the brotherhood. And it was the day-to-day, just things that would just come up that would happen that you just remember years from now, and you have these stories like you're sharing with us, you just laugh about, and it's just those connections that are formed. And you don't appreciate it until years later when you're not there anymore.
That's a good point.
That you look back and realize, like, oh, these schools don't even do reunions like we do every 5 years with our classes. It's just special. You know what, Jimmy?
I remember I used to get calls from parents of young kids who were in grade school, young boys.
Yeah.
And they would say, hey, my son would like to talk to you, but what do you think he should go to prep and not this school or that school? And I said, first of all, I will never knock another school, ever.
Right.
They all have great programs, and they all work for people, and you just have to find your niche, so to speak. But I said the beauty of prep was that brotherhood. I said it makes it unique, and I say to this day, I cite those examples of the friends I still stay in touch with.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you see that at a lot of schools, but prep was unique. And again, just yesterday I was talking to classmates. I'm sure I'll talk to some today. This weekend I'll go out and with a classmate. I know what I'm doing, and it's just part of what I really valued at prep.
Yeah, and now that we've had Villa come into the fold, and you hear about their sisterhood and how special that is, we had our President Leadership Cocktail event a week or two ago. And one of the students commented on when he was speaking to all the donors there, and he was saying how, the brotherhood, Villa as a sisterhood, he's like, now we really come together as a family, and we're starting this new family together. And there's always going to be the brotherhood element for the guys there. There's always going to be the sisterhood element for the girls, and then together it's just a big family, and now they're starting a new relationships and connections that they'll have these stories about years from now as well with this new identity of the school.
I hope so. I met Kevin Smith. He seems like a great guy.
Yeah.
He went to a great undergraduate school. So yeah, we shared that commonality, and we had actually University of Dayton, sort of an alumni gathering with him sponsored by Mr. Hilbert and T.J. Richter. So a lot of prep network there, but bringing Villa into the fold, I am optimistic that it will improve and enhance, what prep had to offer.
Yeah. And, we'll end on this on the part of you being a student at prep. How is it that prep helped develop you into the person you are today?
Well, I was challenged at prep academically. I mean, I went to St. Andrews, a parochial school, but, look, I had no other family member who had gone through prep, so I didn't even know what to expect,
right.
What it meant to make second honors or first honors, or what the assemblies were. And it pushed me, competitive nature from sports was I wanted to be the best student I could be. The class rank was new to me. And, I always tried to do the best I could. And that helped me be disciplined, to do my homework, to get my assignments done. I mean, and I was juggling, being an athlete with a heavy course load, and I was in honors classes. I had a few APs, but you could see there was another dimension of student down there that really made you work, your tail off. And I think I tried to be the best student I could be, and learned a valuable lesson on how to really budget my time. And listen, truth be told, I mean, did I read a few cliff notes on a few of the books I was assigned? Yes, but I did really try to get my work done and in a timely manner, and it helped me really be responsible and efficient with my time usage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one more thing, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I graduated from there with 15 college credits that Dayton took. So it lightened my load for baseball when I played, so I could take 12 credits, still be full-time, but absorb some of that where I didn't have to take 16, 18 credits, my junior and senior years, or in the spring when baseball was full swing and we were traveling or whatever. And it helped a lot in that regard, too.
Well, and I would say, probably lighten your load with the amount of credits you had, but probably also the preparation academically, you going into Dayton versus some of your classmates at Dayton maybe had from their schools. I'm sure you felt a little bit, I don't want to assume, but you felt pretty prepared for college when you were there.
I did, and I wasn't overwhelmed with some of the workload, although, again, college itself was a big adjustment socially. I did room with a graduate from my class, Kevin Hughes. Great guy, fantastic. He's from, great family here. And Kevin and I were, friends all the way through prep. We went to Dayton together, and that helped a little. And then, I was involved in baseball, and he was involved then his sophomore year with a fraternity. But I stayed very close, and to this day, still do. And he lives in Cincinnati. But I think having each other helped both of us adjust more than just academically. Socially, it was a big adjustment.
Yeah.
Being away from home, and then I was on a team, and it was overwhelming seeing, first of all, the level of baseball I was exposed to, and then questions academically. Could I cut it here? Could I do well in baseball? Do I fit in? All those insecurities came out, but you just find a way to work through it. And Dayton's a Marianist school, and Faith, it really enhanced my relationship with Mary, so to speak, as it's a school dedicated to the devotion of Mary and giving in a community, and that really enhanced my religious background, and it was just a great fit for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then now while you're at Dayton and you eventually go on to pursue law school, did you know going into Dayton that's what you wanted to go into, or?
That's a good question, Jimmy. I wasn't sure what I wanted to major in. I knew I liked government. I went into political science, but then I started to think, where can I serve? I liked the prestige of being a lawyer, but was I cut out to do it? Could I do it?
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody around me. My dad was a blue-collar guy, worked at American Sterilizer. And then, my mom worked several jobs. She did eventually have a job at the courthouse, but I didn't know the workings of the legal system.
Yeah.
So it was intimidating to me. And then the more I got to know it, then I figured, well, I needed to be a good writer and a critical thinker. That's why I had concentrations in English and philosophy. And then I said, I'm going to take the law school admissions test. And I got accepted to a few schools. But when I got accepted to Dayton, I said, you know what, I'm pretty comfortable here.
Yeah.
And I stayed there.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then I know I read your bio to kind of start this podcast episode. You have some great career accomplishments. You've done a lot of awesome things. And, it's just a testament to who you are and what you've been able to do. And I know you're a very humble guy, but, it's awesome to see the success you've had. When you look back so far on your career, what do you see as one of your biggest accomplishments?
I think, God, I believe this, and I'm not saying this works for everybody, but for me, I think God puts you where you need to be. Mm. And I think putting me in a position of serving the members of Erie County, from day one, I've been involved with juveniles. In other words, individuals under 18, whether they commit a crime and they're called delinquent, or whether they don't have proper parental care and they're labeled dependent, and we have to make decisions for them. I think one of my proudest accomplishments would be starting a program. I call it Great Expectations, not the novel that we had to read for prep, but this is a collection of diplomas and GEDs for the juveniles that I encounter in my courtroom. I want them to be better and to really have something concrete in their hand when they get done with the services we provide them. Mm. It's a little reactive and it's not proactive, and I've been involved in programs that have been proactive. In other words, get out in front of the program or problem, give juveniles things to do. But once they're in the system, what can I do for them? And making them get their GED or the high school diploma. Now I have a collection. I have a big binder of several hundred. Wow. And, I take great pride in that because it almost brings me to tears. And I don't want to be too sentimental, but it does, because you've improved the quality of somebody else's life. Yeah. And I think one of your questions was, how do you measure success? Yeah. And I think you measure success by, did you do something for someone else today that made their life better? And really, you got to throw the material things aside. And maybe it's a redundant message, but it's true. If you want true value in your life and you want to follow the mission of why you're here or a purpose of a higher calling, it's really, I think to serve others, whether it's your family, others in the community, the vulnerable, the less fortunate. And so to get back to your question, one of the things I take great pride in is the number of juveniles that we've gotten diplomas, with. Yeah. And we work together on this. But for example, I'll have a kid that's involved in a shooting, tough street kid, and he knows he's getting placed and he's crying or upset. And I'll say, listen, you don't have any high school credits and you're 17. What's your plan? You can't just stick up country fairs and roll dice all day. And then we start talking about it, and then that person will articulate, hey, I want to be a welder, a landscaper, I want to go into law, I want to be a juvenile probation officer. We start touching on commonality, and then I said, well, there's only one way to do it. You have to graduate. So I said, I'll make proposals like this. I'll say to Johnny, hey, Johnny, listen, I'm going to send you downstate, but here's what I'll do. The minute you get your GED or high school diploma, I'll bring you back. Mm. And they go, really? So now it gives them a purpose and a focus. They didn't have that before. Yeah. And then we'll get them services, make them better readers, stronger readers, better learners, get them some, structure. Then they also can get vocational training. So, Jimmy, there's no better feeling than when my secretary interrupts me either on the bench or when I'm in my chambers and she says, so-and-so's here with his mother, or so-and-so's is here alone. And they want to give you a copy of their diploma. Come on. Yeah. I mean, how do you put a price on that?
You can't.
You can't.
There's no way.
No. And that means as much to anybody getting a doctorate degree from the circumstances these kids come from. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. They now have a fighting chance. Yeah. So when they leave the juvenile system, so to speak, and they're 18 or they're on their own or doing whatever, at least they have a puncher's chance now to do something. Now when they apply for a job and their employer says, I need a diploma, they go, here you are.
Yeah.
And if they want to go on to further schooling, the door is open. So giving them that foundation, to me, is one of our greatest successes, to be able to do that. Another small one is, when I was president judge, we brought in therapy dogs. And the kids, we brought them in for children who were going to have court appearances. But many times we just have the children sit with the dogs in my jury room.
Yeah.
It calms them down. They're anxious. They're stressed. They've been through nightmare of experiences. Some have been exploited sexually or physically abused. Some have been abandoned, left alone because their parents have overdosed and died from heroin.
Yeah.
Or whatever the story, these dogs, again, love unconditionally, and the children get it. And they have, it really helps it helps me. When the dogs are here, they come into my office, and it really takes the edge off everyone. But it makes the kids feel comfortable. In fact, they're so successful, Jimmy, that we have a vet's court, and they use the dogs now.
Oh, wow.
And now we have a day where our county employees want to sit with the dogs at lunch, and we do that.
Yeah.
So I know you might say, wait a minute,
Yeah.
bringing dogs, is that the signature of my, but it's another measure of helping people
Right.
who are in vulnerable situations. Look, when you have to come to the courthouse, there's a problem usually.
Yeah.
And, it's overwhelming. You don't know. I'm used to it. I've tried cases here. I've been in the court. But when you're a new person and you come into an atmosphere, you're like, wait a minute, this is too much for me. So we try to help with that.
So I got a lot of questions for you off of that.
Yeah,
you gave
I'm
you gave a lot of really good stuff. I guess one of the questions I have is, if somebody is listening to this podcast, right?
Yes.
You're sitting in a position where you can make a direct impact like that. You can make these agreements with these kids and really see that impact. What advice would you have for somebody listening to this podcast who maybe doesn't have a position like yours where they can directly make an impact on a kid like that, but they do feel like, wow, I want to make a difference. I want to help somebody. I want to make an impact in somebody's life. What advice would you have for somebody like that?
Oh, those agencies are out there. All you have to do is maybe a little legwork, do a little research, but, through, for example, the Boys and Girls Club of Erie. You can go to your YMCAs. You can go to the public library and offer to be a reader or someone who can help. There's enough service organizations in our community. I love the Erie community too.
Yeah.
I'm a cheerleader for Erie. And I think that if you want to get involved, if you want to coach a team, do it.
Right.
You want to offer your services at a school to be a monitor, do it. You want to be an after-school reader, art teacher. You want to help kids, walk across the street, chaperone a trip. There are so many ways that your calling to serve others can be answered. You just have to have the desire and take the first step to do it. I've been blessed with this position. I love coming to work. And I'm thankful for it every day. I don't take 1 minute for granted. I value the fact that the citizens of Erie County voted for me and put me here. And I never let them forget it. And I try every day to fulfill my obligation to them.
So awesome. And I think that's just exactly why are we on this earth? It's to share those experiences with people. It's to help one another out. Because you know what? We might be doing good today, but we could be knocked down tomorrow. And to have somebody there to help pick you up, let's do that for other people while we can, in the opportunities we have today. And,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Everyone gets knocked down. Let's see if you have the courage to get up, or if there's someone there to help you get up when you might need it,
Yeah.
And I agree. A server's heart is is where, the perspective I'd like to share.
Absolutely. Now, going off the question of having advice for people, what about somebody who wants to, kind of changing topics a little bit, somebody who wants to aspire for more? Maybe they're listening to this podcast and they hear the success you've had, and maybe they don't have pursuits in law, but maybe they have pursuits in other areas. What advice would you have for somebody who wants to accomplish success at a high level?
Well, that's interesting. So let me first relate it to me. What I try to do is I try to take my courtroom and make it a classroom. I teach at Barron, Gannon. I've been teaching at Penn State Barron. Ralph Ford, their provost, their president, told me, I just saw him the other day at a function, he goes, you're our longest serving adjunct professor. I've been there since 1989.
Wow.
Teaching. I love it. And then I teach at Gannon. And the students I teach, I offer them an internship to follow me in my courtroom, meet with me on a daily basis. I expose them to the law because, quite simply, I didn't have that. And it would have been less intimidating to me. So I try to create opportunities that way, and then I get them hopefully inspired that if they want a career in law or in the court system or law enforcement, I can answer their questions. Now, let's take it outside the legal area. There is no excuse for working hard. My dad told me, he goes, look, all you need is a chance and the door to just be cracked open by a hair. If you can see daylight, then my responsibility was to knock that darn thing down.
Yeah.
And every job I had. So Judge Connolly took a chance on me by giving me a break, I should say. When I graduated from law school, I took the bar exam in Pittsburgh, and the day I passed, he offered me a job to be his law clerk. And that gave me a step in the door of the legal field. So my first job, Jimmy, was to be the best law clerk I could be for that judge.
Yeah.
And I'm only telling you, one of the proudest things I ever got is on that wall when Judge Connolly and President Judge Fott awarded me the only one I'm aware of. It's called the Distinguished Law Clerk Award. And then from there I went in the DA's office and I tried to be the best district attorney, assistant district attorney under Rusty Cunningham, who's now a retired judge. And I tried to serve the people every day. That led to the Department of Justice, and then that led to me running for judge. And from day one here, I said, I'm going to work hard every day to fulfill my obligation. So the message to people is, you just need a chance. Keep knocking on the door, knocking on the door, knocking on the door. Many times it won't be answered. But if it's even opened a crack, man, you get that chance. You knock that darn thing down.
We get on the podcast on that because really, I mean, what more can be said? I mean, when it comes to success and achievement, it's just go out there and stinking work your butt off and keep your head down and go to the grind. So how do you keep your vision for where you want to be while you also got your head to the grind and you're in the day-to-day of what you're doing, being the best you can be, but keeping the vision of where you ultimately want to go?
I think you keep your vision by keeping your feet on the ground. I always told people, no matter what I did, no matter, however you term it, you get an award or accomplishment. Some people say, "Well, that's great." My dad always, he always kept me grounded, and I always said, there was a size 11 at 5th and Cranberry that would remind me that if my head ever got too big, that foot would be planted in this rear end. But I love that. My dad was a Marine. My mom was very gregarious, and the balance of those two, the family was center to us. My dad gave up everything. So did my mother to help me and my sister, Tina. People don't even know I have an older sister, but she's very accomplishment. And so that focus of family and faith. Yeah. I can't start my day without thanking God and where my place is. So that's where it starts. Family is central to me, and I've been blessed with a great wife. I mean, I'm telling you, I don't do anything in this life if she doesn't say yes when I propose. Yeah. I'm telling you right now. Yeah. I'm just hollow, a shell, and I mean it in every fiber of my body. And people are going to go, "Oh, that's a little sappy." Let me tell you, it's true, and I can't duck the truth. Without my wife, Suzanne, she's been with me through everything. And then we have 6 wonderful children. And, everybody says, "How are your kids?" Let me tell you something. Every family has problems, okay? And if they tell you they don't, they're lying to you. So I tell people, some days some kids are good, and on that same day, some kids aren't so good. Yeah. It ebbs and flows, and that's the way a family is. But you get through it together. You get through the tough times. You stick together. So having my faith, and which was enhanced at Prep and Dayton, and to this day it carries me forward. It could always be a better servant, and my family. And then out of that, I think, grows relationships, friends. I am better than I deserve to have the friends that I do. I mean, I'm telling you, I got guys that would do anything for me, but I think they know that I do anything for them.
Yeah.
And it gets back to, again, I don't know if they're still teaching us down there, but I valued every word of our school song, loyal and true.
Yep.
If you can live your life loyal and true, then you know what? You're going to have a good life.
Amen.
You got to be loyal to God, your family, your friends, your job, and true. And that's a character trait. There's no room for BS. And you got to shoot it straight. And I think honor, truth, loyalty, and there's an amount of toughness you have to have. Because you're going to get knocked down.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can get up.
Yeah. So on the topic of family, how important is it to not just succeed in your career and being excellent in your work, but also keep the balance of being a great husband, being a great dad? I mean, you do have 6 kids, so I'm sure those years when I have 4 kids now myself, I know every day it's just a constant. They always need something. You want to be a great dad and be there for them. How do you balance that between excelling your career but then also being a great dad and father?
You have to make family a priority. It has to be central to your life. And as you've experienced, and congratulations. I mean, 4 kids. So you went from playing man-to-man to playing a zone. Now you're in prevent. Yeah, that's what I said when we had 6. So, I mean, but it's everything. It's everything. Yes, you're going to have problems. But, the value of it is central. And I think we're losing that in our country. The focus of family is deteriorating, if I might comment on it. But for me, keeping it central. So, here's what I mean. In putting it in practice means how I displayed it is always being there for the kids.
Yeah.
Practices, late nights, problems, picking them up. Good times, bad times, listening to them, disciplining them, having discussions, making tough choices. You have to do all that, but you have to be there. I'm the dad that was out in the yard with the glove, throwing a ball in the air, going, okay, where are they? I'm here, guys. Oh, Dad, you want to play catch again? I never wanted to be the dad where they say, well, wait a minute. He said he was going to play catch, but he's where? You know what I mean? Never would you say that about me. So time, and then you have to know each kid's personality.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. We had some type A's in our family, some very good athletes, some, worked harder, some that didn't care about athletics, and you got to make sure that you play to everyone's strengths and interests and know that each of them are loved. For me, I draw balance, I try to be active in, physical fitness, but I do it, for example, early in the morning or when they're practicing. It never took time away from any of their activities. And I think if they know you're there through thick and thin, but that you're there, and there as a team with me and my wife, we had the great fortune of doing this together.
Yeah.
And I think they get the message. And hopefully they'll carry it on in their lives.
And I'm sure looking back on it, you don't regret a moment.
Not
Late
one.
nights,
No.
the early mornings, playing catch with your kids.
Oh,
but on the flip side, if you were so vested in your career that you never left your office or you never spent the time, you would regret those because you don't get that time back.
No, you don't. And, for example, when I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office preparing for some of these trials, they lasted, for example, 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. That's a long time, and every night you're preparing witnesses. But you want to always make sure you go home, check on the kids, you come back late, and you do burn the candle at both ends. But like you said, I wouldn't change 1 minute, and absolutely no regrets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the way to live, right? No
That's
regrets that you can go
Let
back
it all
and say
out
that.
there.
Yep.
No club left in the bag, Jimmy.
That's right.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right, so to kind of end the podcast, I just want to ask you this question. It's a kind of recurring theme that I ask our podcast guests. It's saying basically, if you could go back in time and speak at your graduation to your classmates, what advice would you say to them, knowing what you know now as well, if you're speaking to your classmates?
Okay, if I'm speaking to the prep, it's all male.
Yep.
Now it
All
would
male.
change. So yeah, and I would say, gentlemen, we came in as boys and we graduate as men.
Yeah.
That was the big thing.
Yeah.
But I would say a few simple lessons. First of all, what I've learned now is 3 simple things. Through my, exposure to philosophy, I'd say 3 of our greatest philosophers, Socrates. If you learn this lesson, Socrates, know thyself. Cicero, control thyself. Jesus Christ, give thyself. If you know those 3 pillars, you'll be a great person. But for you, gentlemen, there's 2 other things I want you to know. Always be loyal and true to this school, to your family, to your God, to your friends. If you can do those things, you'll have a great life.
Wow, that's a great thing to end the podcast on right there.
That's it. Simple.
Yeah.
And listen, I've also learned as a litigator. Listen, the brain can only absorb what the seat can endure. So you don't want a speech to go on and on and on, and you keep flipping pages, and they're just looking, when's he going to be done? When's he going? No, you hit them hard and fast, and with a heartfelt message, and you give them those 3 principles, and then you build it on loyal and true, and that would hit home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good stuff. No, I mean, on behalf of our listeners, myself, I just want to thank you for the time that you spend with us today.
Oh, it was an honor. I can't believe you picked me up. I was humbled. Thank you.
I feel like we could spend a whole nother hour talking about more. Maybe we'll have you on as a guest again in the future, and we can dive a little bit deeper into some of the stuff you shared.
Well, let me say, I think you're a great spokesman for prep. You have a kind heart. You're very approachable, and I think you're a great representative of the school and its mission. So they're lucky to have you running this podcast and promoting the mission of Cathedral Prep.
Oh, thank you. I'm just happy to do that.
And tell your folks I said hi.
Will do. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I wanted to put a little plug in for the next episode of the podcast. That episode of the podcast, we're going to feature Cathedral Prep girls basketball head coach Doug Chusey. Doug Chusey took over coaching for Villa basketball back in April 2011, and he's got an incredible resume of success that he's been able to lead his teams to through multiple playoff runs, reaching the state championship level, and the amount of girls that he's been able to help get scholarships to go play beyond high school but into college as well. And the one thing I love about Doug is he's just so tied into the school's mission and keep big picture of what we're trying to do for the kids first, and then basketball second. Meaning that our mission and our values is what he's trying to promote within his team for his girls, and Doug's a great asset to the school and what he's doing there with the basketball program. So stay tuned for that episode of the podcast coming out soon, and we'll see you all later. Roll Ramblers, God bless.